Welcome to my podcast, Unveiled with Maria Leggett. That's me, and I am going to discuss mediumship, tarot, and spirituality so we can start to unravel all the mysteries together, and you are more than welcome to ask questions anytime. Today we're going to discuss the Cardinal Directions and their elements. So, with the spirituality that I practice, it is earth-based. And because I am an omniist, I believe that there is truth in every religion, not just one. And so I honor the pieces of each religion that I believe in and that I am comfortable working with and sharing. And one of the things that I absolutely love, I found through, it's actually in a lot of religions, actually. I found it through shamanism. It's also in witchcraft. It's also in druidry. It's also in a lot of pagan-based religions. They're also practiced in Christian-based religions. People just don't realize it. We have the 4 cardinal directions and their elements. So the 4 cardinal directions that you're working with, I want you to think of a circle. And I'm actually going to get a pen so I can draw this out while I'm recording so this all makes sense. So for me, if I had a piece of paper, I start on the far right hand side, and that is east. As I start to draw my circle, I go down to the bottom in a clockwise direction, and then I hit the south. Then I go up again, and now I'm completely the opposite side of the east, which is the west. And I continue up to the top where I'm completely the opposite of the bottom, which was south, and I'm in north. And then I continue on and complete my circle so that I'm back in the east. So now that you have this circle of life, the circle of life on planet Earth, because I don't know that this would actually work outside of this realm because I don't know what elements they have in those other realms. And so we're just talking about what would work on planet Earth. So on the far right where we have east, right? So we named them all. We have the east, we have south, we have west, and we have north. And inside of that circle, we're going to draw what's called an equal armed cross. And that equal armed cross is a plus sign. So it basically turns that circle into 4 separate pieces of pie. And this is what's all been taught to me by my guides and by my teachers. So you're going to find a lot of commonality between witchcraft and shamanism and druidry for a lot of what I'm going to talk about. It's not all exact, but it's pretty much what I understand it to be. So you start in the east. So the east is your first cardinal direction, and it's called a cardinal direction because you have tons of different directions, but you have the 4 basic ones. And so I was always taught to start in the east. My guides were very clear. I have to start in the east. I've had other practitioners correct me and tell me that I needed to start in the north, and my guides were like, and that's okay for them. So what I want to say to you is, while I would start in the east, if you feel like starting somewhere else, then that's going to be completely up to you. Because again, I feel like spirituality is one of those things that's individual, right? It's each one of us are going to do it the way that we are comfortable with. And so I'm just going to teach and put into this podcast what I understand and what I'm comfortable with. And you are more than welcome to change it to whatever works for you, just so at least you have a basic understanding. So when you start from the east is all about new beginnings. And it is associated with the element of air, and that is masculine. So there is a symbol that is associated with east, and it is a triangle, and it's an upright triangle with a line across probably the top 1/3. Everybody's going to do it a little bit differently, but I've always seen it about the top 1/3 as it goes straight through. And so that's going to be associated with air, and I associate that with the color of yellow. So if you're looking at that bottom right hand circle, right, you have that one piece of pie, and that's yellow. And that's going to be associated with the first 18 years of your life, which is why it's all new beginning. And so what I was taught was east, that very cardinal point, if you were to put a dot there on the circle, that's going to be the day you're conceived. Because from then on, you are growing and learning. And so the day that you're conceived is the beginning of your easterly direction. When you're talking about this type of thing. And so you're born into air because it's new. I mean, not everybody's born into air, right? Because it all depends on your astrological chart. But I'm just talking about in the directions, it's the new beginning. So when you're born, you're in that direction. You're in the east. And so the east is all about your stepping through life, because the first 18 years of your life, all you're doing is learning. You have so many firsts that are coming to you, right? Think about those first 18 years of your life. It is the very first breath you ever took as a human. It is going to be the very first, time that you've spoken, the first time that you've walked. And it's all of these beautiful firsts, right? So many of them. The first time you go to kindergarten, the first time you go to middle school, to high school, and go off to college. This huge 18-year journey, and all of these things that we go through. And for a lot of people, the first 18 years, a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people, it's the first time they experience a broken heart or the first time that they've had sex. So there's all of these huge firsts that happen in those first 18 years of your life. And so East is associated with all of these new beginnings. And that's why, because it's that first 18 years of your life. And so it's associated with the color of yellow. And so on the bottom right, I have my pie colored in as yellow, and I'm working with the element of air here. And so air is this intellect, because you're learning so much. So it's intellect, and it's associated with your emotional body, because it's all these non-tangible things that you just can't touch. You can't touch air. It's just around you, right? With the air and the wind, the way that it comes through, it can blow out a fire. It can stoke a fire. So air is one of those things that you can use for so many different things in your spiritual practice. So if you start in the east, and this is where you're going to do new beginnings, and it's this masculine energy. Air is also associated with incense, and it's associated with incense because it's smoke. So you're talking about smoke off of herbs, smoke off of a fire, smoke off of incense that's burning. So many Catholic churches use incense. They come walking in with the frankincense, and you can see the smoke because they are energy clearing the church when they're doing this. And they're using this air to clean. So they're using incense to clear the air. And they're working with the element of incense, which I absolutely love. And so when you want to clear things out, you can call upon the wind to come in and clear things out. If you want to go to school, you can work with the element of air and ask them, this is my new thought process. This is what I want to do. You can use that. And so if you have an altar, you want to put your incense on the eastern part of your altar. And it's easy enough to find the eastern part. You can either, open up your phone and go to an app and find a compass app. There are tons of them for free, and you'll know where the east is. Or you can just say, I'm using the right side of this plate to represent the east. Completely up to you. It's your intention. I like to be very true to form. And if I'm working with the east, I will put things in the east in my house. So, and one of the reasons why I talk about this is that when I started into spirituality and I loved working with the elements, I didn't understand anything. And everybody's like, oh, you can just do what you want. And you can, but I'm not willy-nilly that way. For me, everything has a purpose and why it's done that way. And so I like to just work with that and stay so that there's a clear intention and just not have this chaotic path around me. So for me, I put things in the east when I'm, working with incense. All of that stays in the east on my altar. And so some keywords that you can use with this direction and with this element is air and intellect and change and education. And things that I don't want you to forget about are overthinking and overwhelm. Those are also air because they're untangible things that you can't touch. Untangible, intangible. Oh my goodness. So that's what you're working with when you're working with the element of air in that cardinal direction. So then you step into fire. With fire is going to represent the next 18 years of your life. So this is between 19 and 36. And it is red, right? Fire. Everybody, when you see red, you automatically think fire or passion, which is absolutely perfect because that is absolutely what is associated with the direction of south. So we have south and fire. It's that element. And so, think about when you're going off to college or you've just graduated from high school, you're full of piss and vinegar and you think you've got the world by the ass and you can do anything. It's that kind of passion. It's that kind of will that gives you the urge to move forward. And so this is associated with your desires and the things that you want to do. And it can also be associated with your spirituality, right? Because this is your passion. Spirituality is a passion of mine where I love doing what I do and I find such peace and such drive behind it. I really do find drive behind my spirituality. So that's what you can associate with south. And south is another masculine direction. And it is associated with just a plain triangle, no lines, just a plain triangle and the color red. And so if you have your circle in your left piece of pie, you would color that in red in your circle of life. And so you're talking about all of these things that you're doing now between 19 and 36, right? You're no longer a newbie. Yes, you are learning things, but you've got a very basic foundation. And so that's what you can look at the east and air, right? A very basic foundation. And so as you're stepping into the world, you're stepping into your desire and your passions and where you want to go in life. So you're stepping into this more red area. It's where you find your true love, right? Fire. You find your true love in fire. You're going to find your passion for what you want to do for the rest of your life in fire. And fire is also very good for destruction because when fire destroys something, it also brings about new life. And so you see candles in every church, on every altar, in any church, there are always candles. So candle is one of the biggest things that you're going to be working with the element of fire and with the direction of south. And, one of the things I didn't mention with the direction of east is an animal. So with the direction of east, you want to talk about that's associated with any kind of bird, anything that takes flight. And so I like to associate that with, eagle or hawk. That's a very common one for east. And so when you're talking about the direction of south, the really super common one is snake. And I love working with snake energy. A lot of people are afraid of snakes, which I totally understand. But snake energy is great to work with because it's you can work with them because they shed their skin, and in shedding their skin, they're ready for growth, right? So fire is one of those things that you can use that element is in the direction of south. You can ask it to come in and bring you the passion and ask for the direction of south to come in using fire and help to remove from you what no longer belongs. So, it's pretty common. This is something that I learned way before I ever even got into my spiritual path. When I was younger, my mom taught me that when I was really mad about something, to write it all down on a piece of paper, and instead of mailing it to the person I'm angry with, to take it and burn it. And that way it will help burn away and take away all those feelings, because now I've poured all that emotion, right? All that east stuff, air, poured all of that out, or my passion, onto a piece of paper, and then you burn it. And so that's still done today in many, many practices where people will write things down on paper and burn it. It's one of my favorite ways to manifest. And so you can do that. You can also do it as a way to release, to let it go. And so You can call in fire and the direction of south to help you with these things, to help you change directions, right? Because you're talking about snake energy and anything else that would be fire. So you're talking about like a dragon, right? Because dragons breathe fire. And you can work with that type of energy. Scorpion, although scorpions are usually water, but so is a snake. So you can use that as a fire, right? Because they have venom that will burn you. So whatever animal calls to you, that's what you can use in this red piece of your pie. Things that are going to help you to manifest and to burn, which, I mean, who doesn't like to have a good fire, right? And cinnamon. So you've got that red kind of thing going on there. And so we've talked about the direction. I've given you the color, and we have a couple of animals, and we have our life path, right? This is where our life path is beginning to set in that 19 to 36 stage, because we're just in this, I have things to do. I need to push forward and keep going and keep going. So now we're going to continue up the sunwise diacal direction, and we are going to head towards water. So we move on to the direction of west, which is associated with the element of water, which is feminine. So we've had the first two directions, east and fire, were associated with the masculine, because you're thinking about the first 37 or the first 36 years of your life. And it's learning all of the things that you needed to learn to be able to go out into adulthood and then forge ahead on that path, right? Where you needed all of that structure to get where you were going, and you needed the passion and the drive to get where you were going. And so once you get past that 36 age, things start to change and your perspective on life starts to change. And I don't know how many people who are listening to this are under that age, but I am certainly over that age. And there was a huge shift for me in my life after age 36. Things started to change for me in a really big way. And I was happy that it did. I was happy to be able to see, you know what, there are things about myself that I need to change. And I really truly believe that this is where the element of water and the direction of west step in. Feminine archetypes associated with the direction of west. And so in the west, you're talking about water. This is all about your emotions. And it is the things that you are feeling, right? It's this beautiful fluidity of your emotions and your creativity, where some days it flows really well, but sometimes there can be a block and nothing's getting through. And, you know, just like with anything, if you spill some water, it goes everywhere. The direction of west is no different. There's so much water, so much emotion associated with this, that if you spill your emotions, they can go everywhere. And so, you want to be careful again, just like you did with the East. You're setting those intention with your words. Your emotions can slime somebody else. So you want to be very careful that you're not sliming somebody with your emotional energy. And you think about this, right? When you get super emotional, you cry. That's salt water, but it's still water. On your altar, so far you've gotten East, which is some incense and some smoke, depending on what herbs you're going to burn. And then you got a candle. And then we're talking about west, which is water, tears. And water is, I love working with the element of water. If there is a situation that is dealing with some type of energy that I don't know what else to do with, I call upon the direction of west and the element of water, and I will write down my intention on a piece of paper, and I will set it in the water, and I will let the water work with it. I will let the water in the direction of west work with that emotion to help me to get some clarity, because I don't understand what's happened. And so I call upon it to ask them to help me. So I've always got water on my altar someplace. You know, if all else fails, and you really can do this when you're super upset. It reminds me very much of this scene in Harry Potter, right, where he collected Snape's tears. You can trap your own tears and use them. And you can use them in ritual, because it's your DNA, your salt water that you're creating for whatever it is that you're doing. You can direct it where you want it to go. One of the things that I love to do is when I've done a spell and I've written my words down, I've let it soak in water, I take it to the local park and I dump it into water where I know it's going to flow away from me. Right. And I know that paper is one of those things that's completely consumable. It doesn't hurt anything. So I'm very careful about that. And I let it carry off, right? Let it carry it off away from me. Or the other thing that you can do instead of using a river, if that makes you uncomfortable, if you use city water, and I'm going to be very clear that you need to be on city water, you can flush it away from you so that it goes away from your house. If you have a septic system like I do, you don't necessarily want that energy staying in your septic system in your property. So I highly suggest that you take it someplace so that it carries away from you, unless it's something that you want to come to you and then you don't want to flush it. You don't want to send it on the river on down its way away from the house. If you want to use water to call something to you, you can pour that water into the ground so that it gets reabsorbed and becomes fuel for whatever plant is around and gets transmuted into food, which I think is beautiful. Working with water is wonderful. It's working with that feminine energy, working with the mother. I always see when I want to work with my female ancestors, I will make sure that I am pointed to the west. I always feel their energy more there than anywhere else. And so there is a god or a goddess associated with every single one of these directions. And you can do your own research to look up who's associated with air, who's associated with fire, who's associated with water, so that you can work with those on your own. I don't want to teach about that right now, but you can certainly look those up. So you're in this element of water in the west. And so you're in this black, right, where it's all the things. You're starting to come into your own and you're heading towards that older part of your life. And so you've got more wisdom coming to you and you're learning that you don't have to be so staunch in your belief system. It's where, I don't have to believe all of these things that I was taught. You're now learning that you can flow a little bit better, right? You can learn to bend and you can learn to change. And this is one of the things that not the element, but the direction of West is really good for, and why it's really good with feminine energy and why it's associated with feminine energy rather, because women, our bodies go through so many changes, right? If you think about your menstrual cycle, yes, that's associated with blood, but that's also, it's fluid, right? So our bodies are constantly undergoing a change and we're constantly moving. And so our bodies, when we're going through this menstrual cycle, we're very connected to the moon. And that's why, right? So we get a new moon about every 28 days. You also get your period about every 28 days. And there are also 10 lunar months in a pregnancy. Females are so physically connected to water. It's not even funny. Water can be used for so many different things. I absolutely love working with the direction of West when you're talking about female energy. And so if you want to work with the female ancestors in your lineage, I would highly suggest looking towards the West. And if you are not comfortable working specifically with your ancestors, you can ask for a female archetype. So you want the mother female archetype to work with, or you want just a goddess archetype to come in. And you can use a very generic female statue for that. You can work with, the female archetype, and there are 7 female archetypes that you have that you can work with the direction of West, right? So we have the maiden, we have the mother, we have the huntress, we have the lover, we have the mystic, we have the queen, and we have the sage. And so when you're talking about those female archetypes, each of them has their place in a female's life. They also have a place in a life for a man. So if you want to manifest, if you're listening to this and you want to manifest a lover and you want to manifest one of a certain age, a certain type, work with the direction of west to bring you your lover, because you're looking for a female. And if you are a gay female looking for a female lover, do the same thing. Call upon the direction of west to bring you that emotional love connection that you want. And I'm trying to think. Oh, so we're talking about animal. So I have an animal. I haven't even mentioned the animal for west. I like working with dolphin. So you're talking about any kind of water animal here. I like working with dolphin. You could work with shark if you were, kind of pissed off. I suppose you could work with that. But you could also use like mermaid energy, right? Because we talked about dragons for south and fire. You could use mermaids. You could talk about, Atlantis energy or Lemurian energy, that kind of thing associated with west, because that's all underwater at this point. So those are the things that you can do with the direction of west and the element of water. So now we move on to the direction of north and the element of earth. So the element of earth is also a feminine element. And so this is the inverted triangle with the top, with the line in the bottom third, because it goes across the thinnest point of the triangle. And so this is going to be on that upper right hand piece of the pie of your circle of life, and that is white. And here in this direction, you're talking about brother bear, very protective, loving energy. And here in the direction of north, you're talking about all the plants, all the animals. You're talking about basically the fairy kingdom, right? Because the fairy kingdom rules over all of the animals. And so this is that stronger, older, deepening connection with the earth. Can bury things on your property. So if you're trying to manifest something, you can, again, use a piece of paper, write out your intention, and you can go out into your yard, dig up a little hole, put it underneath, and put the sod back down on top. And now it's transmuting into food for the worms, because worms absolutely love cardboard and paper, and they use it as fuel for themselves. And so it helps the earth, and you can manifest what you want that way. One of the things that I love to use earth for is, especially in this upseason coming for Ostara, I like to take my intentions on a piece of paper and get a cup of dirt, right? And I'll fill it up about 2/3 of the way with dirt, and then I will put a piece of paper. I'll write kind of small, because I don't want a big piece of paper unless it's a big pot, mind you. And then you can write your intention down on this little piece of paper, put it on top of the dirt, add, more dirt on top of it, and then put your seeds and then water it. And so as your seeds start to grow, the roots go down into your intention. So as your seeds are growing, the roots are going down, they're absorbing the nutrients from the paper, but your intention is now coming up into the roots of that plant, and it's going to bloom out into the world. So I love doing that at Ostara, to setting these new things and watching your intention grow. But when you're working with this beautiful energy of the earth, we're talking about things that you want to last, very tangible things. Working with plants, working with rocks, working with any of that kind of energy. I also, for me specifically, even though the direction of north is a more female energy, I look to the direction of north for the male archetypes. And this is just what was explained to me. And I know that it doesn't make much sense because it's a feminine direction, but that is where I see the males of my family. So when I want to work with a specific man who's crossed over in my family, I look to the north and I call in that direction of north. Other than the fact that I can explain to you that this is what my spirit guides told me to do, that's all I can tell you. I don't have this whole intellectual reason for why I do it. It's just what I was told to do, so it's what I've always done. So every morning when I get up and I say thank you to the 4 cardinal directions, because I do that every morning, I always envision a god or a goddess standing in each one of the directions. A lot of the times for me, they're all female, regardless of what they are. I see female versions. But behind them, I will see the women of my family in the west and the men of my family in the north. Most of the time, it's just my papa, which the man's always with me. I love him to pieces. Anyway, so that's associated with that white portion of your circle of life. And I absolutely love using this. And if you've colored this in and you have followed this, you may look at this and go, oh, she's talking about the medicine wheel. Because I am not of Native American descent by my DNA, because I've done my DNA, I know that I have no Native American blood in me. I don't feel comfortable calling this a medicine wheel, but I have no issue with calling this a circle of life, because this is what it is, right? This is literally my trail through life and where I'm going. And so I'm 51. I'm at the back end of the west in that black direction, heading into my croning years and a couple more years, where we're working with the older energy, you're working with the wisdom of the elders, and that's what the north is also associated with. It's associated with your elders and with that older wisdom. And, the earth is so old, thousands and thousands and thousands of years old, and there's so much wisdom that the earth has to give us. So you only need to go out into earth and sit down and pick something and say, talk to me, and it will talk to you. The directions will talk to you. The elements will talk to you. Each one of them will speak to you and give you wisdom on your own. You only need to ask. So if you're talking about a representation of earth on your altar, we're talking about salt. Salt is used a lot as a representation of earth. You can use herbs, like the physical herb itself. Any herb would work, and you can use a tree branch, you can use leaves, you can use flowers, you can use rocks, you can use crystals, because those all come and are cultivated from the earth. And so that would be really helpful to use when you want to work with those directions. The earth, because it's associated with green plants, right? You can use the element of earth, especially with its older wisdom, to help you to manifest. And any one of these directions you can use to manifest, you can use them to release. It's going to be completely up to you and what your intention is and how you want to work with it. I also do want to say, as Spirit is bringing this to me, if you work with animal bones, which you can, you need to be very respectful of the bones that you are working with. And you need to say thank you to the animal who gave its life, whether it was roadkill, whether you had a hunter who went out and killed the animal. Before you work with those bones, you want to say thank you to that animal for its life. And then you can ask that animal to come to you and give you its blessing to use the bones. To me, if you are not doing these things, you are not being respectful, you are not honoring the life of that animal. You don't have the right to use those bones unless you've asked permission of the spirit who once carried them. Just my opinion, and that's what that is. So now you have your complete circle of life. You have your east, south, west, and north, all 4 cardinal directions. You have what ages they're associated with. You have all of the symbols that go with them. You have examples of what you can use, animals that you can use with each one of them. And we have all the different colors. One of the things that I feel really compelled to do with spirituality and with people who are just learning this process, there are so many teachers who are going to go out there and tell you, oh, you need to go buy this and you need to go buy that, and this crystal is going to do such wonders for you. I fell to that, and I almost want to use I fell prey to that, because these people made a ton of money off of me. I spent thousands of dollars that I didn't need to spend. And this is one of the reasons why I do this podcast and why I do it for free and why I want to talk about this, because I don't feel that anybody has to spend an extraordinary amount of money to get things done. You don't have to have, a $500 crystal in your hand to be effective. You don't need any of that. What you need is a pure intention and your body. One of the things that this is one of my favorite songs ever. It's called Earth My Body. And I like the version that Kellyanna sings, but there are tons and tons of different people who have done this song. And it literally tells you how to use your body as the elements. Earth my body, water my blood, air my breath, and fire my spirit. So you're using all 4 of the cardinal directions and elements in your body. Every single day that you live and breathe, you are using every single one of them. So if you want to sit down and do a spell and you don't really have something, right? One of the things you can do when you're buying a new tool is to consecrate it to yourself. And I'll go into consecration of tools later. But think about this. So let's say that you want to do something and your ritual says, oh, you need water, and you've already gotten yourself into your sacred space. You're sitting down, you're doing your workings, and you're like, oh my God, I don't have any water. You have saliva that you can use as water. Now, definitely you're not going to produce enough saliva to put, a piece of paper down in, and kind of gross. I wouldn't want to do that, but you can certainly lick something. So just remember that your body has everything that you need. And I think that's really important to talk about with spirituality because, all the things, are they nice to have? Sure they are, but you don't have to have them. You don't need them. Do you want them? I certainly do for some of them, but you do not have to have them. If you had to have anything and you said, okay, Shelly, what are the 4 basic things that I have to have in order to work with directions? Number 1, get yourself some incense. And I don't care, you can make it yourself. Even if you go out and and this is one of the things, right? So everybody who thinks, let me dial that back. There are people who I know who think that using a food grinder is a shortcut, or a coffee grinder is a shortcut to making incense. Me, I live in 2021, and if I have a coffee grinder that can grind up my herbs better than a mortar and pestle, guess what? I'm going to do it. It doesn't mean that my intention is any less because I'm using electricity. I'm using something so that I don't tire my damn arms out using a mortar and pestle. There are some people who don't believe in that, but you can absolutely take a mortar and pestle, take some of your favorite herbs or a resin, and you can grind it up. Or you can go to the local thrift store and pick yourself up an old coffee grinder and use that. That's what I do. It works fabulously. So you can use incense for east. For south, you're going to want a candle. I get the ones off of Amazon that are used for Shabbos. For people who are Jewish, they celebrate Shabbos on Friday nights. And so they have these little white candles. They're perfect. You can get a pack of 72 for $11, $12 off of Amazon. I love them. And so I use those because they burn within an hour or two, and I don't have to worry about them burning for too long. It's the perfect amount of time for a spell or for a prayer if I want to put that out there. So you want a candle. And for west is water, just go get a cup of water, literally. You can also use wine. If you want to use wine, you can do that. And then for north, salt. Very simple. Salt, or you can use a crystal, any of those things, right? I have a little selenite tower that was gifted to me when I graduated from mediumship school, and I leave that next to me when I do all of my readings so that I've always got my elements all around me. And so those are the 4 things that you really want to work with when you're trying to work with any kind of ritual or prayer that you want to do. You want to have those 4 things with you and invite in all 4 of your directions, all 4 elements to be with you and to love and protect you through whatever it is that you're going to do. So I think that's really important for people to remember. You don't absolutely have to have, the most expensive of anything and everything. You just don't. That is clearly my opinion. And, to me, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. Doesn't mean that mine's the greatest. Doesn't mean it's the one that you need to follow. It's just one that you're listening to, and maybe you're going to get your own ideas. So if you have ideas from listening and you say, hey, Shelly, this is what I do, I would love to hear back from you. So please comment in the post below and say, I believe a little bit differently. Here's what I do, which I love. I love learning from people who do different things, because then I may incorporate that into my own practice. I think it's wonderful, right? If you want to start to set up an altar, we'll do an altar podcast where we go through what kind of things you can put on your altar. But basically, you just want to at least work with these 4 directions, because these directions have been around for forever. For as long as the earth has existed, they've always been there, right? Earth, fire, water, and air. They're always there. They're from the inception of the planet, and they're old, and they can work with us, and they have so much wisdom to share. If you just want to go into meditation and ask for the elements to come to you and say, what do you want me to use to represent you? Or perhaps you have a spirit guide who says, here's what I want you to do. My guides are very clear. I have some very private practices that I would never tell anybody, just because I don't want that magic broken, nor do I want somebody to know how to get to me. So this is another thing that I want to warn. If you are new to this path, and let's say that you found this great spell, it worked really well for you, don't tell people about it. Keep it quiet. Wait until the spell has completely worked its magic, done what it's going to do, and you're positive it's finished. Then you can tell someone about it. You don't want to dilute your magic. You don't want to dilute your intent by sharing it with everybody, right? So if you think about this, look at it this way. I have a glass of wine in front of me. And I love, I don't like wine, but let's just say I love drinking wine. So you have this beautiful wine that's sitting in front of you. Well, think about it. Every time that you tell someone about this fabulous wine that you like, that, a quarter cup of water gets added to it. Well, eventually, by the time you tell everybody, there's absolutely no taste of wine left, because you've added so much water, because you've told people about it, that now no longer the wine exists. It's just gone. You got all this liquid and there's no wine left. And now it doesn't even have a tinge of color to it, because it's all gone. That's the same way with your magic. Don't talk to people about it. You do it quietly, and you just wait and watch it to work. One of the hardest, and for me, that was really hard. I did a spell years ago, I want to say 3 years ago, that literally took 3 years to come to fruition. And it came to fruition 7 months ago. And I have never been happier that it came true. And I'm glad that I kept my mouth shut. I'm glad that I didn't share. But I can assure you it took 3 years. So sometimes, right, because you're asking the universe to help you. Anytime you do this, everything you always say, in the highest good of all involved. And I knew that if it was really in the highest good of all the people involved in this spell, that it really would happen. It just needed to take its time to change some minds, and to change some hearts, and to change some feelings in order for it to come to fruition. And I am beyond grateful that it did. And the universe knows that I am beyond grateful. And so take your time. Sometimes the spell that you're asking for, that business that you want to manifest, it's got to move an awful lot of things out of your way in order for it to fully manifest. And it could be, removing doubt from your mind, removing doubt from the mind of someone else. There are a lot of things that spirit has to pull all the pieces together for your puzzle to happen, or for your spell to happen. So just keep that in mind when you're doing this, right? It's not going to happen overnight. If it does, kudos to you. But just keep in mind, sometimes it can take a while for that to work. I have had a few spells happen fairly quickly. I wouldn't say they've ever happened overnight, but they do happen fairly quickly, and I'm very happy about that. So just remember that when you're working with the elements, working with these directions, super important thing. I wish somebody had told me that when I first started down this path, because I was telling everybody all the stuff I was doing. Oh my God, I did this and it came true. I wish that I had known. that there is an element of secrecy to this. It's the same reason why when people go to church, they don't talk about their prayers. They don't talk about what they ask for, because they want to keep it to themselves and they want to keep it pure. And that's exactly what happens. When you keep this to yourself and you don't talk about it, you're keeping that intention pure and clean, where nobody else's magic can interrupt it. Nothing can change it. It's just in its highest good and moving forward. So, thank you for allowing me to be of service to you today. You can find me on Instagram, Maria Leggett Unveiled. You can also find me on Facebook at the same name, Maria Leggett Unveiled, and my website, marialeggettunveiled.com. If you'd like to book an appointment with me, you can do so at the web, and you can find my amazing new Oracle cards that are due to start shipping on February 3rd on Etsy.com at Maria Leggett Unveiled. Thank you so much.